I absolutely love my job 99% of the time. That 1% of the time where I'm not so in love with my job typically starts out with a phone conversation that goes something like this. Yo, Peter. Yo, client. So I've been speaking to council and they've told me that I can spend $3,000 and about 5 business days and I can subdivide my site. Okay, you know those facepalm emojis that you get on the text messages and the Facebook and those sorts of things? Yeah, that's how I feel in that moment. Okay, so maybe the conversation doesn't necessarily start out with yo. I can't exactly imagine clients saying that to me. And maybe I'm a little bit more professional on the other end of the phone, but you get the idea. I wouldn't say hate, because I think hate is a very strong word, dislike those moments. Because by the time the client picks up the phone to me or sends me that email, they've already emotionally spent money. They're planning their next vacation. They believe that they are going to be Brisbane's next property development mogul, and I have to be the one to crush their hopes and dreams. Unfortunately, that $3,000 and that 5 business days is only one teeny tiny part of the process. The entire subdivision process costs a bucket load more money and takes a bucket load more time. If you want to know what's involved both from a cost and a time perspective in the whole process, then stick around, because in this video, that's exactly what I'm going to cover off. Okay, time for a reality check, people. You are going to spend at least $80,000 and typically at least 6 months going through the subdivision process. It is not cheap and it is not quick. And it's certainly a lot more expensive and a lot more time consuming than the $3,000 and the 5 business days that people typically hear about. So in this video today, I'm going to walk through the 7-step process that you need to follow if you want to subdivide your site. So let's get started. Step number 1 involves reviewing the site. So whether it's an existing site that you already own or a site that you're potentially looking at, you need to consider the zoning and the area to make sure that that area and that zoning matches up with council's intent. Do they actually support subdivisions of land that size in that zone? You need to check the overlays to make sure that there's no problematic overlays that could prevent the development potential. I'm talking things like the biodiversity overlay or the bushfire hazard overlay. Those things can kill the development potential instantly. You need to check the neighbourhood plans to make sure there's no quirks that could prevent subdivision potential. To give you an example, the Mogul-Belbarri District Neighbourhood Plan, I usually stuff that up, that's a mouthful. There's a sub-precinct in there that explicitly prevents the subdivision or the creation of rear allotments. So you need to make sure there's no specific requirements in those neighbourhood plans that could basically say no-go to development. Then you need to look at other things like services and site constraints like protected trees or street trees or bus stops, or you get the idea. The list goes on and on. So you need to, if you've got the ability and the knowledge and the expertise, do the assessment yourself or have a chat to a private town planner and get them to do the assessment for you. That is, I can't stress this enough, that is the most important step. If you shortchange yourself there and try to fast track that step, you will end up a lot worse off down here. So don't try and rush that stage, invest the time there properly. Now, step number 2, let's call it survey. You basically need to get a surveyor out to do a detailed survey and prepare a proposal plan. Now, the cost of that stage, getting the surveyor out, can vary from about $1,500 to $2,000. It depends, what am I trying to say? It depends massively on the existing survey work that's already been done, so by previous people and throughout time. If that survey work is really dodgy, then unfortunately the costs are going to go up because they need to go backwards before they can go forwards. If, however, there's some recent work that's been done in the area and they could just piggyback off that, you might actually be able to get your costs down. It also depends on things like how much vegetation you've got on the site, how many structures you've got on the site. As you can imagine, if they turn up and there's a nice vacant site in front of them, it's actually a relatively small site, they're not going to have to spend much time on that property. Whereas if they turn up and it's a forest on there, they're going to spend a lot more time, which means their price is going to go up. Okay, so once you've had them out on site, they've worked out or they've plotted out what's actually there and they've come up with the proposal plan, the next stage is to lodge the DA. DA being development application, development approval, town planning approval essentially. So what happens is you need to go to a town planner. Typically, we usually take about 5 business days. We can fast track it if time's actually critical for you. And we can also overlap our preparation time with the surveyor's time. If time, you get what I'm saying? If your time frames are super, super tight. Essentially, we prepare the application, lodge it with council, they assess it. If there's a few problems with the site, we might negotiate, might go back and forth. At the end, you get your approval. Now, we mentioned earlier that $3,000, that is where this money comes in. That's the council fee. You'll typically pay a similar sort of amount of money for a private town planner. So you're probably going to pay about $6,000 at this stage here to pay, and that's in terms of council application fees and the private town planning fees. Now, this next step is massive. It's the biggest one out of the entire process in terms of costs and timeframes. So what is it? Do the work. When you get the approval from council, it's going to have, off the top of my head, I'm going to say 5 pages of conditions. Sometimes it could be a few less, sometimes it can be a lot more. It depends what's actually on the site. So you actually, at this stage here, need to do the work that is required by those conditions. Things like connect to the services, remove any structures that are sitting across the allotment boundaries, remove any obstructions on site, pay your infrastructure charges. Did I say that just before? I don't think so. Basically, anything that council's asked you to do, you need to do at that stage. Now, just a couple of tips. Queensland Urban Utilities need to give you approval to connect into their sewer and water lines. That approval process can take 3 months. It is massive. So I'd recommend as soon as you get the town planning approval, or as soon as you know that you're going to get the town planning approval, go to an engineer and get them started on that. You want to go up to them and say, this is what I'm doing. If you've got the conditions package, go to them with the conditions package and say, give me a quote to do everything you can do. They will then lodge the application Queensland Urban Utilities and get approval to connect into the lines, do the physical work, etc., etc. Another tip, if you've got an existing house on that block, you may want to keep the house there right up to the point where they need to start doing the site works. You may as well be getting rental income from that house while you're actually waiting for the approvals to come through. Now, my final tip, infrastructure charges. So this is typically about $28,000. 14 grand goes to Queensland Urban Utilities, 14 grand goes to Brisbane City Council, and that's per additional allotment. So that's added into 80 grand I mentioned earlier. Anyway, that fee is payable at any point from approval up to the actual, well, what we're going to get to, which is step 5. That money is better off in your bank account than council's. So generally speaking, you're better off actually keeping the money in your account until that very last moment when you're ready to proceed with step number 5. Like I said, you may as well make money off it, not council. So this is where, like I said, if you've got Queensland Urban Utilities taking 3 months and then you can't actually start any work on site until you have that approval from Queensland Urban Utilities, that's how you start to eat into massive amounts of time here. Probably the biggest cost factor at this stage is connecting to your services. So actually putting the lines in for sewer, water, all of that sort of stuff. It really varies so much, but for argument's sake, let's throw a figure of $20,000 out there. It's just a ballpark idea to get you going. Like I said, major costs, major timeframes. Now, once you've done all the work, the next stage is plan sealing. Essentially, you need to lodge an application with council to give them the opportunity to check that you've done all the work that was required by the conditions up here. So basically, you lodge an application with council that goes, condition 1 asked for this. Here is evidence of compliance with condition 1. Condition 2 asked us to do this. Here's evidence. So when you think, like for example, infrastructure charges, you would submit a payment receipt to show that you have paid your infrastructure charges. When it comes to connecting water and sewer, you'll submit a copy of the approval from Queensland Urban Utilities and then the as constructed drawings at the end. You get the idea. It's basically a checking process. Now, there are a few different people that can lodge this application on your behalf. We can certainly do it. However, if you choose a Seal Smart accredited consultant up here, they can actually use the fast track process down here, which I'm going to tell you now Most people sit back and they go, oh, I've got plenty of time. I don't need to worry. I don't need to rush. By the time you get to here, you've found a buyer for the property. It happens every single time. So time becomes critical at this point. So if you've considered it up here and you've engaged a SealSmart accredited consultant at this point, when you get down here, they can usually lodge the application and get the approval within 5 business days. Like with RiskSmart applications, that 5 business days doesn't start ticking until you've paid your money to council, which doesn't happen until they've issued their quote, which doesn't happen until the application's been lodged. So probably say 2 weeks just to be safe. For the average other person like us, it might take about a month or a bit more to go through the standard process. So as I said, I can pretty much guarantee you now time will become tight at the end there. So you may as well consider it up here and consider getting you know what I'm trying to say. Look at getting a SealSmart accredited consultant at this point, because you'll be very, very happy later on. Now, the 6th stage, we're almost at the end here, is called titles. Once you've lodged the request with council for plan sealing and they've put their stamp on the plan as sign of endorsement, you pick that plan up and you go to the titles office. Hand it over the counter, fill out a form, pay a little bit of money, maybe $500. That's all that's involved in that stage. It is really, really simple. Then you sit back and 2 weeks later you get a confirmation email, approximately 2 weeks later. And at that point, you celebrate. That is the point where everything is officially done and dusted. So, as you can see, each one of these stages is going to cost you money and take you time. This stage here is probably the most costly and the most time-consuming stage. As a really, really loose general sort of figure, you're going to spend $80,000 in 6 months going through this entire process. Like I said in the beginning, just a little bit more than $3,000, and what was it, 5 business days? Yeah, you can see why people absolutely break down when I sit there and say, yeah, no, it ain't going to be that cheap and it ain't going to be that quick. So there you have it. Hopefully that's helped give you a bit more insight into how the subdivision process actually works. If you've liked this video and you would like access to more videos, then please like, comment and share below. If I see lots of likes, comments and shares, I'll assume I'm on to a winner and I'll keep making more videos. Also, if you've got a site that you think may have some subdivision potential, then send it to us. We don't charge for initial advice or investigations, so you've got nothing to lose by sending it to us and asking us to do a review. That's all I have to say. Until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane town planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.